Uh, I'm Jack Edison, and I've coached at Plymouth as the head coach for several years. I grew up in Green Township, just southwest of South Bend, and just had a mother that was a basketball fan and a very good player. She was an outstanding player, in fact, when she was in high school at North Liberty. And then my dad also was a very good player in high school at North Liberty. So I kind of grew up with that background, that interest, and they always loved the sport and just loved sports and loved people. So I kind of grew up in that atmosphere, and I just remember when I was little, like a lot of kids, Indiana kids at least, where you're out shooting down in the barn. We had a shed down there that I would shoot in, and it was kind of became a passion for me. I just kind of got addicted to it when I was little, such that one of those things where you can hear your mom, calling for supper a lot of different times, and you'll be right there, and all of a sudden it's 20 minutes later and it's your third call, and you probably better get going by now. And but when I was doing that, growing up, I won a lot of state championships, national championship, world championships, universal championships with my last second shots, and somehow I was always the hero. Sometimes it took me 20 last second shots to win, but your mind was just thinking of growing up and playing for that high school team, playing for that state tourney and that type of thing. And then I guess it was strong enough that it just kind of, as I graduated from college, it just kind of led me into coaching to be a part of sports and basketball as well.
So you played in high school then?
I did. I played at Green High School, and then went on to Bethel College and played there. And then right away, after kind of an unusual situation where right after high school I got a job at Plymouth, a teaching job at Plymouth, and there was no basketball openings right then, so I helped in some other sports, track, and in fact we were starting wrestling that year, and I was a wrestling coach. If you call reading a book one night and trying to figure out what a half Nelson is, and then I was assistant wrestling coach, and then we were trying to apply that the next day. If you call that a coach, then we'll use the term kind of loosely, but yes. And then about it was my second year that I started with freshman B team. We had a freshman B team back then where I coached there a couple of years, then the freshman A team for a year, a couple of years on the B team, and just was fortunate to be able to move up. And then after those 5 years, then Steve Yoder, the head varsity coach, left, and there was an opening, and kind of an interesting situation back then. Today it takes about 5 interviews, in front of 20 people, and superintendent called Bill Nixon, the assistant coach, and me, the B team coach, in and says to Bill Nixon, "Do you want this job?" And he says, "No way do I want that. I'm enjoying life right now." He loved baseball, of course, and basketball, everything, football. So then they asked me, and I said, I don't know. I got to think it over, talk it over with my wife and see. And so a day or two later, I said, well, I'll give it a go. And so it was a little bit different than the intense interviews right now, with and narrowing it down from 60 people down to 8 to 5 to 3 and that sort of thing. So I was pretty blessed to just kind of I guess fall into it here and be around such great coaches to start with, from high school with Jim Reinbold, Dave Hadaway in high school, and then Don Granitz in college, and then Steve Yoder and Bill Nixon and people like that I learned so much from and got a foundation from to start with.
Your high school coach, did you find yourself, you using any of his, tactics or methods, or when because when you first start coaching, you're kind of, lost a little bit. How did that develop as
Yeah. When I first started coaching, I was greatly influenced by the coaches at Plymouth at that time. And then as I kept on coaching longer and longer, there were certain like college coaches at the time that I just idolized, and some of them I idolized, and some of them I really liked the things they taught, the way they taught, the way their kids developed leadership on the floor, the way they played fundamentally sound, and just the way they carried themselves on the floor, the gentlemanly manner they were on the floor, where they could be intense competitors and still be gentlemen at the same time. And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do you teach both of those? And also I'm Dean Smith and John Wooden type people. I'm just going, finding everything I can on them, reading everything I can on them, going to clinics and that sort of thing where they're speaking, and went out to Mike Krzyzewski and Dean Smith's basketball camps and worked their camps and kind of talked with them just to try to get as much info as I can. So I'm picking up a lot of things from them early on, and then kind of trying to teach those things, and then as I'm coaching for about 25 years, I'm all of a sudden realizing, like my high school coach Jim Reinbold would come to some games and things, and all of a sudden I'm realizing, this is exactly what he would do. This is kind of the discipline that he would use, self-discipline and whatever for the kids. This is the preparation he would use. This is kind of what he would do in practice a lot. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it had really absorbed, I guess, more than I realized it. And yes, I think it's like a lot of people where all of a sudden you're 40, 50 years old, I'm a lot more like my dad than I ever thought I'd be, and maybe sometimes ever I wanted to be, when I was young anyway. But and it was kind of that way that I was a lot like my high school coaches.
Yeah, you don't realize until, like I have 2 young children, and you don't realize how my
You're teaching them. Wait a minute, this is the same phrase and the same thing that my dad taught. It said it in kind of the same tone even. Yeah.
It's amazing how that works out.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah. So how were your years at Bethel? How did you, how did that come about, and how did you think it was
I actually went to Manchester College my first year, and then transferred to Bethel my second, third, and fourth year, and we had a coach by the name of Gary Fry our sophomore year, and then a great man that I just idolized, and just a great Christian man at the time in my life when I needed that direction, that guidance, because you get to be 20 and 21 in through there, and you get so doggone smart, it's hard for people to take, I'm sure, and then you just need some better direction from somebody with wisdom and not smarts, I guess. And he was that man in my life at that time, my dad and he, and so that was such a great influence on me, and much more just in living life the right way and being a good person, or at least a better person. I don't know if I ever got to good, but better person, and probably more than even the basketball part that he taught, which has always impacted me greatly. Yeah.
So you finished up at Bethel, and your first coached wrestling for a couple of years, and then so your first basketball season. How did that go, and how did how did where you started coaching there, and how did it kind of
Yeah.
feel the momentum kind of?
Okay. My first basketball season was freshman B team. And so what we do is we would have maybe 24 kids, 22, 24 kids on the B team. And, I've coached varsity 34 years, and some of my great memories are freshman B team and some of those kids. And once in a while I'll see those kids. And of course, I'm not much older than the seniors at that time, just 4 years older than them, or 5, and so now I'm coaching these B teamers, and the top 12, or maybe at least 10, are on the freshman A team. So now we've got the freshmen, the maybe 11 on through 20, 22, something like that. At least at that time, the way they're ranked. So we're playing, and we play Michigan City. I can remember it was about the third or fourth game of the year. We're playing Michigan City, and some of these kids have brought this up to me in past years. We are behind them like 45-0 at halftime, some incredible score. We're actually, so our goal for the second half, they're pressing us, and they're quick and long, lanky, athletic, and so they're getting steals. So our goal in the second half was see if we couldn't cross the 10-second line with the ball, at least half a dozen times or something like. So we just changed our goals for the second half, and but we did end up. Our leading scorer hit 2 free throws, and so he was our leading scorer. We had 3 points. I don't remember the final score, but I think some of those guys do. And they were not smiling after the game or anything. But since that time, we've had some pretty good laughs about that one. So that was my kind of my initiation year, and so I coached 2 years on the B team, and then we just have had some great kids. Just so much fun to coach, be around, and I just try so hard, good, bad, or indifferent, skilled, unskilled. They just tried so hard, and then we were fortunate when I was a freshman coach. We had some of those same good kids, hard, but they had some, a few more skills, shooting ability, things like that. So we were able to, I think, only lost 1 game maybe that year, and then on the JV team the next 2 years, I think we lost maybe 5 one year and 2 the next year, and so it kind of, they blessed me with maybe the opportunity, I suppose, to be asked at least to be the head coach, and then to be honest, I thought, you just may never get this opportunity again when they asked me to be head coach, and Bill Nixon turned it down. So and just, Judy and I thinking about it, we just kind of thought, you may never get the chance again, a couple years or something like that. If it doesn't go well, I think our fans will tell me about it, and we'll just escape and teach and enjoy life on the farm. And 34 years later, why? What's up with this? Huh?
So how was that first year on varsity? How did that go?
Interesting, because every player on that team I had coached before. Mark Hayden had played varsity the last 2 years, so I didn't coach him on the JV team or the B team. Kind of Larry Greenlee was the same way. He had at least 1 year on the varsity. Yeah, I don't think I coached Larry on the JV, but everybody else I had coached all of them I coached as freshmen, and then I coached most of them on the JV. Some of them were juniors and sophomores on the JV the following 2 years, and poor kids like Bob Gerton, who was on my freshman team. He was on the JV as a sophomore, he was on the JV as a junior, and then a starter on the varsity as a senior. I didn't start the first game. I wasn't that wise, I wasn't that smart at the time, and then after about 5 minutes he got in the game, and he started every other game after that. I figured it out, that he's the guy we need. So yeah, I think it really helped me. It helped the kind of the flow, or you know, I was familiar with them and vice versa. So and then we were able to win maybe, I don't know, 17 games, something like that, and win the sectional and get into the regional. So it kind of helped maybe our confidence, my confidence, or the team's confidence, and then had a couple starters back for that next year. Lost 3 key seniors, a couple starters back. So it just kind of continued for the next few years, where we would have a few guys back to kind of keep it going.
Now that, so what year did you take over as the varsity?
It was 1974, 1973-74 season was the first year, and then last year, then as head coach, was the 2009 year.
So, you know, we can talk about the Skiles years too. So, what did you see him coming up, and as a like I'm not sure where he was born, or
Yes.
Was he born here in Plymouth?
No, he was born in Walkerton.
Okay.
And came here in upper elementary, and yeah, Scott Skiles was. Oh, you could see when he was in junior high that there was just a little something special there, a little something extra, and he was. But you never know at that time. It's just hard to read. You know, a lot of guys in junior high, they've got pretty good skills and all, and then it just whatever, they just kind of level off maybe a little bit later, and sometimes other interests take over, and sometimes they're just good kids, but not necessarily where they grow with their skills and that sort of thing. And with Scott, he just had that heart, that desire. He had that inner push and a drive that just kept him going and going. But I did not, you know, I'd like to tell you, I saw it when he was in, you know, elementary school, that he was going to be a pro player. You could just see it. I didn't. I thought he's going to be a good high school player, but I didn't say great. But as he got into, as a freshman in high school, you knew it was going to be, he was on the varsity then. He played both B team and varsity the first part of the year, and then only varsity the second half. I think maybe that year we were about 500, and then he started sophomore, junior, and senior years, and yeah, he just kept progressing. And kind of an interesting thing about Scott is that when he was a senior, he was not recruited real heavily yet by Division I teams, and I just could not figure it out, and he couldn't figure it out. Well, he went to a summer camp in Pittsburgh. It's called a 5-star camp, and he hurt his ankle like the second day. I mean, he sprained it bad. Now, he, you know, Scott, he's so doggone tough. He's going to play anyway, but it was just that bad that the trainer kept him off of it and that sort of thing. So he plays maybe a day and a morning of the second, a little bit of the second day. And so he sits out most of the week. He and Phil Wendell both went to that camp. He sits out most of the week. Well, we find out from the one team that was, well, maybe it was Fresno State in California was the one Division I school that was really recruiting him hard and really wanted him. And we found out either from them or someone that said, well, we've got him ranked as a Division II player on our list from that Pittsburgh camp, from the 5-star camp. And I thought, well, that makes sense now as to why he's not being recruited so heavily, because that was the big thing back then. The BC camp and the 5-star, those were two big names, and if you got lowly ranked or highly ranked on there, it made all the difference in the recruiting. There wasn't so much playing in the summer where coaches are traveling around looking at them. That was the 2 times the coaches went to see him, so nobody got to see him there. He got a low ranking, And so it ended up being that Judd Heathcote happened to come to Michigan, from Michigan State, happened to come to the semi-state. We were fortunate enough to get to the semi-state, and he came to the afternoon game, saw him play, and was impressed, turned around. From what Judd said afterwards, they started driving home. We went in the afternoon, and they said, let's turn around and go back and watch him again. So they turned around, he says they turned around, came back and watched him again, and then they wanted him. When they saw him play that night, they said that he's our kind of player, that he could play. So in talking to Scott, after he graduated from Michigan State, he told me, now see, he broke a lot of Magic Johnson's records, like 6, 7, 8 of them. I couldn't even tell you how many of them, from assists to scoring to all kinds of things. And he told me afterwards, he says, when I went to Michigan State, now see, here's Scott. I picture him as just confident. He's going to go in there, and he just feels like, I'm going to blow things away. I'm going to be the starter the very first day. He says, when I went in there, he says, I was just hoping my freshman year I could, contribute some, get on the floor some and contribute some. And I don't know how many games it was, maybe 2, 3, maybe 1, and that he didn't start, but maybe 2 or 3. And then all of a sudden he's starting as a freshman, about the 3rd, 4th game of the year at least, and never a non-starter after that. And he says, and I thought this was really interesting. He says, I was surprised by it. He says, I kind of surprised myself by it. And but the amazing thing with him was, like, after he graduated, we play open gym in the summertime in the gyms, as all teams do, and we did ours like during noon hour, and we'd have sometimes 20, 30 people come in, so you're going both ways. And, so you got maybe 2 games going on, 20 guys playing, and winners stay at one end of the court and rotate and whatnot. His senior year, he was really good. After he graduated, he was really good. And then he's like 6'1", he's filled out. He's not like a 6'9" lanky kid. Boy, he's a project. In 2 or 3 years, he's just going to fill out, and he's going to be at another level. I mean, he's probably pretty well leveled off by now, skill-wise and growth-wise and ability-wise. And the next year, he came back, and he was an incredible level higher than he was after he graduated. After his freshman year, I mean, he could shoot shots, he could play people one-on-one. He'd come down the lane and he'd throw a ball up underhanded from about 10 feet out, because he had to learn, kind of a scoop shot. I mean, one that is probably as low a percentage shot as you could have, but for him, he had it down. It was like, but he had to do that to arc it over the 6'11" kids that he's playing against, and he developed that. The next year he came back and he was another level yet. I'm thinking, man, this can't be. I mean, and then about that year or the next year, somewhere in there, I don't know what it was, he could come on the floor, and we had some great alumni come back and play, just outstanding players. He could come back and pick out, I don't know what, 4 other 2nd graders or kindergarten kids or whatever, and beat them. I mean, he was that good. So he graduates from college. Okay, I'm amazed. Okay, but we're talking another level now when you're going to the pros. Okay, that's out there. And by golly, he made it on a pro team. So okay, get your contract, get your $150,000 minimum a year, sit on that bench, enjoy it. You're up front, you're watching the best in the world play, game after game, travel free, all that sort of thing, and making money. Enjoy it. And by golly, he's all of a sudden he's starting in the pros. He's setting assist record. He still has the 30 assists, the career, I don't think career, but the game high assist record in the pros, and plays for Pacers and Magic. Saw him play a few times there, Bucks, but he comes back in the summer. One of those years, he's supposed to get a back operated on, so he comes back in the summer, and he says, I went to 2 different surgeons who said, you're going to have this surgery, but it would fuse a couple of bones, vertebrae in the back, and it would limit some your flexibility. So he says, I went to this other guy, and he says, well, you can try this for a few months, maybe 3 or 4 months. And so he does all these stretches and exercises and height. They're called plyometrics these days, and that was a real new thing back then. So he says he goes in there and he's doing these deep knee bends and lunges and things like that. And he says, okay, now what do I do next? He says, well, that's it for today. We'll come back tomorrow. And he says, geez, I thought this was going to be some sort of intense workout. He said, next morning I couldn't even get out of bed. I was so sore. But when he was in high school, when he would bend down with his knees straight, he could reach about to 5-6 inches past his knees. He didn't have much flexibility there at all. He would walk in the gym after in the pros about 3 years. He came into the gym. He says, watch this, coach. He just went flat-handed without stretching, loosening up or anything, flat-handed on the floor. I said, you've been doing something different than you were in high school. And so he just he would spend 4 hours on conditioning, flexibility, stretching, all that sort of thing, from 8 to 12 in the morning, every morning, all summer long. Did it in the summer. Part of that was a sit-up workout, a core workout for the stomach, that he would put his legs up and do crunches and all kinds of things. And he demonstrated it to my son Michael and I. It was Michael's sophomore year, and Michael tried it for a little bit, and he had his legs in the air for 15 minutes doing different things, bicycles and that sort of thing, and your stomach just totally burns. Anybody else, it burns after 2-3 minutes. He went 15. His stomach was rock hard, and which made his back strong as well. And so that 4 hours was his agility and physical fitness workout. Then he would work 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon on basketball skills, dribbling, passing, shooting, all kinds of things that way. So he would spend an 8-hour day all summer. He says, nobody else does this, but they don't have to. They're faster than me. They're quicker than me. And this gives me just, maybe a 2-3 foot advantage, like on an outlet pass, something like that. Makes me that much quicker when I do these plyometric jumps and that sort of thing, and side-to-side moves. But he says, I need to do these in order to equalize their ability. And so you really had your heart had to go out to him, and really, I guess you always pull for somebody does those extras to kind of be where they are rather than just fall into it.
So where do you think that drive comes from for to achieve something like that?
I don't know. He's just he was always a hard-nosed competitor. His dad was a competitor, and he just kind of grew up with it. But when I figure out where that drive comes from, watch out. That I'm putting a patent on that thing, and probably make $1 or $2.
So you had your first time. When did you guys go to? You guys went to state, right?
Yes.
What year?
That was 1982. We went to the state with Skiles. Yes, and Bill Windleman's.
Okay. So that was that his junior or his senior?
That was his senior year. Yes. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that season, how it developed, and when you kind of first got the idea that you had a team that capable of achieving something like that?
Well, that year in '82, now we had, I think maybe Stu Neidlinger. We lost a player or two the year before, but most of them were starters that year before. And they had a real good season the year before. So, our expectation was fairly high. But boy, the area teams, you talk about the county teams and the coaches in our area, just incredible back in that time, as they are today as well. But the likes of Phil Waybright that you've had in talking, Larry Radecki, just two of the greatest coaches in the state, Dean Foster as well from Bremen, and Gordon Mawson, just tough coaches to play against, prepare for, as tough as anyone in the state, and in our sectional. And so, we'd lost the year before the sectional, and that year we started off playing LaVille and won that game. Then I think the second game was Elkhart Memorial. It comes down to we're behind like 4 points with about 12 seconds to go, and they have the ball, and they're throwing it inbounds, and so pretty much game over. And all of a sudden, we deflect or something, and it goes out of bounds. We get the ball and are able to score with about 2 seconds to go. We score and call timeout. So on the bench at that time, I think we had to foul or something like that, but Pete Rockaway had just come into the game. And I think we just subbed him in right then because somebody fouled out maybe. So they're taking the ball out of bounds. They have to go full court with it. Pete makes an incredible play by taking a charge. So we're 2 points down. He takes a charge and he goes to the free throw line. And I'm saying to her, I says, oh no. Of all people, he just comes into the game cold enough. Pete is an outstanding shooter. Skiles was a great shooter. Pete might match him a lot in practice. Maybe not range-wise, but Pete could shoot the eyes out. And so he's at the line, but 31 minutes and 58 seconds sitting on the bench, and now all of a sudden he goes to the line, and that kind of pressure, he's mentally tough, but especially being cold like that, he drains both of them dead center. So we go into overtime and end up beating them. And it was kind of coming from nowhere, and then we're able to continue, and we go undefeated up through we're playing at LaPorte. We're down about 4 or 5. They've got a great team, and play this wide zone, and we're down about with maybe 3 or 4 minutes to go, 5 or 6, and just down the whole game, and it just doesn't look good. And all of a sudden, Skiles just hits like 3 or 4 from way out there. And we get a little bit of a lead, and then they have to kind of come out after us, and so we win by 3 or 4 or 5. And I'm thinking, boy, that was great coaching. You get a guy that shoots long shots, and it makes our offense looks pretty good, when you. And I'm thinking on the way home, I thought, boy, shooting can make up for a lot of poor coaching. And so then we go to the holiday tourney we played at Notre Dame up at the ACC and won our first 2 games, and play South Bend LaSalle. And the South Bend LaSalle team we're just real familiar with. Our kids kind of, we'd played them last game of the year. We had played them and just got, and then our kids would play against them some in the summer. They would meet up there or come here or whatever, and some court somewhere, and they'd play whatever. We'd have some guys, they had some leaders that, would get guys together, and Skiles calls up people and gets them together, and they all go play. And which got them to, it creates 2 things. You get a camaraderie a little bit, but also makes things even more competitive then during the season. So we played them in the finals, and it is close all the way. And then at the end, we're able to extend it a little bit. So we win the holiday tourney up there and are still undefeated. We go through the rest of the season then undefeated until the last game of the year, South Bend LaSalle. But fortunately we got them at home, so we've got the advantage. Except, and they had a guy who's coaching up there in South Bend right now. Great kid, great guy, who didn't start a lot of the games, but by the name of Kingsbury. And he guarded Skiles and held him, I think, under 10 points that game. And they end up beating us. We had a last-second possibility to score, and they ended up beating us by 1 point last game of the year. A loud gym filled up full with two teams that I don't know. LaSalle might have not had any other losses other than other loss. So, but maybe I don't know. So then we go into the tournament, playing Argus in the finals. I think it's a 1 point game at the end of 3 quarters. One of the smallest schools in the state. There was a time, I don't know what we are at that time, but there was a time during the year that we were actually ranked number 1. It was, we try not to say this very often, but it was by default. You know, some team down who was number 1, I think Jake County, somewhere down there, somebody beat somebody who beat somebody else who beat somebody down somewhere who's ranked higher than us, and all of a sudden we're ranked down and these teams get beat, and all of a sudden we're number 1 for a day or two anyway, and then LaSalle comes in and they beat us by 1. So now here's Argus, one of the smallest teams in the state, playing one of the top teams in the state, and right down to the wire. And so we end up slipping by, fell way bright in those great Argus teams, and then go into the regional, and we play Manchester in the afternoon and win that one, and then we play Elkhart Memorial that night. And somehow they, even though it had been, I don't know, 4 months earlier, they had a great memory. They remembered that first game of the year, or second game of the year, and so they've got a lead on us in the, I don't know, 4th quarter of 11, double figures, and we're able to come back and pull that one out. And then went on to the semi-state, and we're just blessed. We got played the afternoon game, went into overtime, and beat a good Marion team in overtime. And then that night, guess who? LaSalle wins their afternoon game. We play them that night, and same scenario as after we're behind. I think 3rd quarter, we may have been down 8, 9, 10 points as well, and somehow able to come back in that last quarter and win by a few points to get to the state finals. And then I felt like that year the best team in the state was Indianapolis Cathedral. They had maybe 4, maybe 5, counting a couple sophomores, and a kid that came off the bench by the name of Daniels, whose dad was a pro player. Who later went Division I, but I think they had 5, maybe even 6 Division I players, and Kenny Barlow and Scott Fath, and just some great players that we were just fortunate. We got a little bit of a lead. Barlow got in foul trouble early in the 2nd quarter, and so he sat out much of the 2nd quarter, so we were able to get a 5-6 lead at halftime and just kind of hold on to it from there. And then it went to the final game that night against Gary Roosevelt, and that one was just more of one team would get a lead of maybe 5 or 6, then the other, and it was just kind of back and forth the whole game. And then at the end, it ended up tied with Scott hitting a last-second shot that most people have heard about and are familiar with, to go into overtime, and then another overtime after that, and then we were able to win it in the 2nd overtime.
So walk me through that moment when your team is down and you need a shot to go to overtime, what did you have a moment where there was a timeout, or was it?
Yeah. Well, actually, what happened was we're down 4 points, and we're down 4 points with under 10 seconds to go. They have hit, I think, one free throw maybe. So we're bringing it down the floor, and it's, we're down 4. We got the ball, 10 seconds. It doesn't look good right now. And then we're able to score, and then we call timeout after the score. So I believe there's like 4 seconds left right now. So now we're down 2 points with the ball. We foul, I think, after that, and they miss free throws, and then we call a timeout. I haven't seen that for a while, but somehow, it has to work out that way where they missed. In fact, I think Phil Wendell made a great foul. He fouls out, but he made a great foul. They missed the shot because he fouled a free throw shooter that wasn't as high percentage. So I can't remember details. I hate to say it. But so we've got it with 4 seconds full court, and there was a timeout, and so we, our players kind of knew what to do. They'd kind of practiced it, and they focused in on that sort of thing. So we got Ron Sissel taking the ball out of bounds and just makes a good pass fake and sets up the pass coming in. Todd Samuelson makes a great pass to Scott Skiles over the top of the defender. And you talk about Scott, people remember the shot and they think it curved, whatever. But they talk about Scott and the shot, but the move he made to get open, if he doesn't make that great move, there's no shot. Because guess what? They were thinking about him. They were ready. And so they were really playing him tight, really denying him. So he really made a clever move to fake coming hard to the ball and then back cutting to get open, and just the timing with Todd's pass was exceptional, and so he catches it with some space from his defender, but there's another guy running at him from in front. So Scott shoots his let's see, it's been 82, how many years is that? Get to be about 40 or 50 years, somewhere in there. 92,
close to 40 now.
40 years, yeah. So after 10 years, that shot was a 30-footer. After 20 years, it was 35. It's been 40 years. It's probably a 60-footer by now. But it was long. It was long enough and straight enough, and it might have touched a little bit of rim. But if it did, why? Doesn't matter, because Scott's going to will it in one way or another.
So what went through your mind when that shot went in?
I'll tell you exactly what went through my mind. I thought, to be honest with you, I said, praise the Lord, because not when it went in, but before that, when it released from his hand, just the execution of the play, that we executed it, and now the opportunity's there, we got a chance. The stuff that we'd worked on, these guys had worked on all year long, we did it and did it right, and it's just a good feeling. I'll be sick and sorry and sad if it doesn't go in. I know that ball's not in the air for 30 seconds, but it seemed like there were 30 seconds of thoughts that went through my mind. But we were blessed. We were fortunate to have those players, and the ball went in, and so we were hung in there for 2 more overtimes, 6 minutes in those days, I guess it was.
Wow, double overtime game, and so it has to make you feel good to know that in that moment they executed the play according to.
They did, yeah. And that's on teams like that team, for example, and some of the other teams. I've been blessed to have so many great players, and by that I mean some of them highly skilled, some of them maybe not so skilled, but just great character, great people, just tenacious competitors, totally focused and with you. And then sometimes you get groups that you wish a couple of those players that are just great role players could have kind of fit in with another group of more skilled players. Certain years you may end up with maybe 4 or 5 role players that are just tough, hard-nosed competitors, but maybe you don't have the skilled shooters and so on, so their teams don't get as many wins. People think, oh, they didn't achieve very much and so on, whereas I'm looking at them and thinking, I think they've achieved well above. Some of these teams that are more skilled than they were should have beaten them by 20 points, and they were right in it to the end, but the record doesn't necessarily show it. So you feel badly for some of those people and kids on those teams that they couldn't have kind of been with maybe a team like this or the 07 team and played that same role there and maybe gotten some of that publicity or notoriety and so on like those guys did. But so I've been blessed with those kind of players for a lot of years, and but I've noticed one thing, that on those teams that when you get that combination of the skills and the role players that accept their role and don't care who gets the credit, and you get a guy like Skiles and he gets all the headlines just about all the time. Maybe at the end of the year there'll be some, and everybody who interviews, their questions are about Scott, and he deserves every accolade he gets. But for those other guys to be very okay with it and even happy with it, above okay, enthusiastic with it, then you got a unit that can go somewhere. And that I've noticed with some teams that preparation, when you're preparing for a game, and it was true with the 82 team, it was true with the 07 team, and several other teams we've had. In the 90s, we had some teams that were this way. In the early 2000s and all the way up early 70s, teams that as you are practicing, like let's say you're playing a game on Friday, so on Monday you're going over the scouting report on this team, and as you go over the scouting report, it's pretty normal. You better be careful, don't go too long. If you're on this thing 15-20 minutes, they're trying hard, but I mean their eyes are here and there, and their yawns come and that sort of thing. Okay, you better come back to this later or something. And then you get certain teams that you can go on that thing and you're on the scouting report and you're walking through this and you're talking about, okay, now they cut here and then they walk, so you're just walking, but they'll cut here and then they'll set this screen, and then this guy will go this way and that guy will go that way, and you got guys looking like this, and it's been 20 minutes in and they got their hand up, and we switch in this one here, right? And then this guy, he'll take him and I'll take him, and he goes this way. Now, does he ever cut? And I mean, their focus is totally in it, totally engaged the whole time. They're as interested in it as you are. I mean, this is us. And when a team takes, that kind of pride, they take that kind of ownership in it, it takes them to another level. And then sometimes they'll be you can also see it like in practice, they'll be on the sideline. Now, it's just normal in practice when you're on the sideline and other guys are out there 5-on-0 or whatever, you're just going through stuff for them just to be standing there watching or maybe glancing around a little bit and starry-eyed or whatever. But certain teams, you'll have 3 or 4 guys on the team, and sometimes you'll have 5 guys, and they're pointing things out to them, correcting any little thing here or there. And they're talking and just totally with it. And that was this team. That was 82. It was the 07 team, and like I've mentioned, several other teams. And you can just tell Now that doesn't mean they're state champions or anything like that, but they're definitely champions. And they're gonna reach a very high level of their capability, which what more can you ask for than they reach as close to their full potential as they can. Impossible to reach that total, but as close as they can. So those are some things that stand out with certain, and to be blessed with so many teams and players like that over the years that I am I don't know why me kind of humbles you. Yeah.
So looking back over what has coaching meant to your life, and how has it impacted your life?
Yeah, I guess as John Wooden said, coaching is teaching, and so you're teaching whatever fundamentals, you're teaching attitudes, you're teaching mental toughness, you're teaching, and I guess one of the things we've tried to teach is differently than probably, I don't know, it seems like most coaches will stress, you see it TV and all, they stress emotion and all when you play. You have to play with emotion and all. And we've always stressed kind of that steadiness, that you try to play on an even keel, that you try to get yourself ready at as high a level as you can, and then just play steady at that as high a level as possible, and not get caught up in the emotion of the game. If you're in a state tournament type game or a sectional or highly emotional type game where you can just kind of play at an even keel steady, because during the course of a game or course of any contest, from tennis to golf to you name it, there's just the ups and downs. Volleyball, just anything. I mean, it goes in streaks. You can watch it in the pros. That maybe the only exception would be, I guess, where hockey or soccer or something like that, it may go in streaks too, but where there's very little scoring. But where there's any kind of scoring at all, it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points in a row one way, and then maybe a lull for a while, 2 here, 2 there, and then another team gets a 6-point run. So there's the ups and the downs. You have 4 turnovers and 6 possessions, and now you're on that low. You call that timeout. You get to a situation in a game where everything's just going well for you. There's 2 minutes left in the game. You were down 8, and now all of a sudden you score 12 straight points. You're up by 4. They call timeout. You come to the huddle. You're celebrating. You're jumping up and down. This game, we got them now. We would discourage that. We would say, stay on even keel right now. 4 points in 2 minutes. I mean, teams have scored have scored 10 points in 1 minute against us. We've done it before. They've done it against us a couple of times in the last minute of the game. So 4 points in 2 minutes is nothing. So and vice versa. You could. You're up by 6, and all of a sudden there's 2 minutes to go, and you're down by 6 now. So you come over, you're totally emotionally down right now. This game's over. They've got it. We haven't got a chance. Idea. They can kind of go in your mind unless you just stay on that even keel and that steadiness. So that's I noticed that with Coach Knight, Bobby Knight's teams. I've noticed it with Dean Smith's teams. I've noticed it with John Wooden's teams. So I've in my teaching, as I mentioned, John Wooden calls coaching teaching, as do most of the great coaches, because that's exactly what it is. You're just teaching that. Playing floor is your classroom. It's your teaching area. So to teach your kids that mental aspect of the game, to just play on a high, non-emotional level, I feel like if we can get our kids to kind of reach that challenge, meet that challenge, it's a great achievement. And then to take it one step further, you know, after you graduate from high school, you go to your job, you're in your marriage, you're raising children or whatever. All the ups and downs that you have, the emotions that you have there with relationships with people, with family, with wives, with workers, boss, you name it. Can you kind of still keep it on that even keel and not get too low with the lows or too high with the highs? It just seems like when you get high with the highs, then you drop what do I want to say, more suddenly or joltingly when the lows do come, or it comes back down to earth, or whatever, the reality of earth hits you. So, you know, hopefully, I don't know, some of those players who I just felt did an incredible job of just playing on that even keel that way, and can maybe, you know, have some aspects at least of their life where they're able to kind of stay in that, stay enthusiastic, you know, just extremely enthusiastic, high energy enthusiasm, but not necessarily confuse enthusiasm with emotion.
And do you probably hear from a lot of former players quite a bit too? Do you get around and see them out in the world? And
yeah, a lot of you see a lot of former players, and had a lot of former players that have become coaches. So sometimes you'll see them when you coach, and well, for example, right now I'll see Byron Falstitch, who played for us in '07. He's an assistant over at Knox, and I just love Byron to death, and so we play Knox. I hate to see him. I hate that guy. I've told him before, let us call out the play at least a half a second before you call it out, Byron. We haven't got a chance. They know more about what we're doing. So I tell him, would you have your players explain the play to us so we get it right? Because your players know it better than our kids. And he is so good a coach and so well prepared. But other kids, I've just been fortunate to have so many assistant coaches in the past, and yeah, we do see a lot of the players come back, and they remind me of things, and I just tell them I did not say Yogi Berra. I use the Yogi Berra quote. I did not say what I said. Because they claim I said this, that, or the other to a referee or in practice, and now they're laughing about it and they think it's cute, and so. But I've just been blessed to have so many neat kids to come back, and it's such a treat to see. Like you'll see them maybe at weddings and things like that a lot, and but to have guys that are coaching at Plymouth, like right now, like Brian Ray, guys like that. Joel Grindle, some of the younger guys. For a few years, I had assistant coaches like Jeff Sheets and Joel Grindle. Ben, I've got to be careful here. I'll leave some people out. Ben Snyder and Kevin Stuckmeyer, Kevin and Ben and Joel, all been head coaches. A couple of them just real successful head coaches now, and Joel, very successful head coach at Argus, Benton Central, and now just big impact on Plymouth's basketball team with Ryan Bales. And Jeff Sheets is an assistant. He's been with us, and just a great coach, assistant at CMA right now. Randy Davis was an assistant at CMA, and we've had kids that have come back to help us, like Jason and Jeremy Renz and all, and then we've had some long time coaches like Tony Plotho, who helped us way back when back early. Coached with us a long time from B team, freshman, all the way up. Just a great, great coach. Tom Eisenbarger, John Scott, just outstanding coaches. John Scott, just an outstanding person to get us prepared for games, which is such a key thing. And Tom Eisenbarger just knows the game inside and out, plus can get it across to the kids and teach it. Lee Zumbaugh, for over 25 years, was a head coach for us. I mean, he's one of the best coaches in the state, and here I've got him as an assistant, but he's a head coach. Michael Delp was a coach for us for a few years as an assistant. Michael Edison, both of them together, and then Michael Edison, and goes back to Mike Pettibone, Russ Teal, way back when I first started. And I think I've mentioned before Bill Nixon, and so I've been, Sam Goebel with a real estate agent here now. He was the assistant coach for us way back, and then he decided I've got to, wasn't married then, so he just decided, he was my assistant coach and decided to go into real estate and got out of teaching. So I've just been blessed with, and assistant coaches are so key. At least they are for me, because I just rely on them so much. And so with players coming back and assistant coaches and some great assistant coaches that I haven't mentioned and players, I'm sure. But the interesting thing is that these guys that are coaches now, I was talking about leadership and how they're just with it. Now, when you get these guys are such great coaches now, and they also were great players for you. So now you've got these coaches on the floor playing, and there's that cliche, he's a coach on the floor, but I don't think even a coach realizes until they leave and you don't have that. And what a blessing that has been to have those guys coaching, but playing and coaching before that time on the floor.
So what was it like to have your son, to coach your son?
I really, when my son Michael was like in, I think he was maybe 6th grade. We had our basketball summer camps and all, and so we're in the junior high gym, and so we're in the auxiliary gym over there and the main gym floor at the junior high. And so we've got, what do we got? We've got the kindergarten through 5th grade, I think, there. So Lee Zumba and I, we're splitting up the kindergarten, 1st graders, 2nd graders, and 3rd and 4th or whatever, maybe. And so we said, Michael, can you take these 3rd or 4th graders or whatever, can you take them over to the other gym and just do a couple of these little drills with them? And then we'll be over there maybe 5, 7, 8 minutes, something like that. So we get going on stuff, and so then we're there about 15 minutes and 20 minutes and 25 minutes, and all of a sudden it's a half hour. And so, we give them a little break, and I'm talking to Lee there. I said, well, we could, do this little drill and that little drill, this thing. And all of a sudden it hit me. I thought, oh my goodness, Lee, Michael's in the other gym all by himself. I forgot all about him. So I go over there, and here this little 6th grader's over there. And I mean, he's thinking up drills and things that I hadn't even thought of. And they're going through stuff, and they're listening, they're going through this, that, and the other, doing little competitive things, having a great time, learning fundamentals and stuff. And I thought, I better get out of here. I better send him over here with my kids, and I just sit and watch this. But I knew then, well, I knew before then, but I knew then he's just got a little knack for it, and a little for teaching and kind of connecting with kids, and he just kind of stayed that way in 7th and 8th grade. So I'm just giving him more and more responsibility after that, and then to have him, when you're coaching, I guess I was different than some coaches are. Some coaches, they take their kids on the bus with them, and I think that's a real neat thing and a nice thing. And I just didn't do that. I was so what happens is you're away from your kids so much when you're scouting at night. Well, sometimes they go with me, but you know, a lot of times you're scouting at practice, 2.5 hours or whatever, school all day long, on the bus on the way to games, at the games, coming back. Weekends watching videotape and trying to prepare for next week and so on, and you're so much time that you're not around them. So when you have the opportunity to coach with them, which he did with me, and then I've been blessed to be able to turn that around and do with him now at LaVille, when they coach with you, boy, it's just such a treat. Not only to have their expertise, because they think just, you know, you start to mention something and they've already said it, you know, or they're already doing it, or you know, we're just, boy, in the last game we did not do this very well at all, and they come in the next practice with 3 or 4 drills that's going to correct that, or at least some of it. And so but their mind is always thinking, and then you can just be with them during that period of time. You're with them on the trip to the games, on the trip back, at the games, sitting by them at the games, and it's just neat that, you know, maybe a little catch-up time or something like that, where you can, I don't know if it could be called that or not. I don't know if you ever catch up, but you better get some quality time in at that time. There's not too much catch-up going on, but yeah, it's just a real blessing then to have him with you in 2 ways, just a personal part of it, a relationship part of it, and coaching ability wise of it. And just thinking, you know, it's not that a coach has any niche or anything that he does necessarily better than anybody else, but when you get 2 or 3 of your staff and you kind of doing everything the same, whatever it is, whether it's zone, man-to-man, or specifics in those areas, or whatever your offense is and so on, everybody's kind of just in tune and on the same page idea, and just kind of thinks in the same pattern. It really benefits the whole team that way. It benefits the whole program that way.
So, over 40 years of coaching, how did you see, you know, how the basketball team and just sports in general kind of affected the community? You know, did you see how that brought, you know, people together? And
yeah, I think maybe I think basketball, Indiana basketball, football can do it too, but I think Indiana basketball especially, seems like with football, fans up in the crowd, you know, they'll talk and that sort of thing, but sometimes it's kind of cold weather where you're chattering a lot, and maybe not quite as social maybe as it can be in basketball, but it brings people together during a game, you know, just for the game itself, and then it can also kind of bring a community together sometimes. You know, the area schools, it just kind of bonds them together a little bit. And if you happen to have a little bit better team that year, a little more success with your team as far as the scoreboard's concerned, you know, the people, they're meeting coffee shops and restaurants and stuff like that, and during the season, wouldn't be too uncommon that basketball be brought up, or maybe some coaching being brought up, or lack thereof being brought up. So yeah, it can bring them together. And then when you really get going in a tournament or something, and make a little, you know, from LaVille has done it in the past with Larry Radecki, and then Argus, then it can even bring the county, the whole area together. I felt like in '82, where, wow, I had no idea, but I felt like we represented a large area and just felt a responsibility that we need to we need to take care of that responsibility and play to a level where you know, their expectation would be met. So and represent our area in a way that they deserve to be represented. So yeah, I'd say in a yeah, maybe that's all I'll say.
Yeah. Did you feel, you know, any extra added pressure, you know, in those times when, you know, you would feel like the whole community was,
Mm-hmm.
you know, really invested in how the team goes, and that, you know, put any extra pressure on?
Absolutely. Yeah, you do. You know, just like in the summertime, you play games in the summertime, and nobody in the community knows whether you win or lose those games. So right now you play those, but boy, they just you. So that would be the self-imposed pressure you put on you, but it's different during the season. And yeah, I felt a lot of pressure. I mean, before the season started, I feel the pressure to not just because maybe we've lost 2 in a row or something like that, then it might increase even, but before the season starts even, I felt a great deal of pressure to you know, compete as the highest level. And if you can compete at the highest level, you know, and play to your full potential, and lose 7 in a row, it's not acceptable in Indiana. It's just not. Some places it may be, but it wouldn't have been here. And so I felt that pressure. And you don't want to approach the season or games that way where you're feeling that. You just want to try to get your team to play to their full potential. But amazing thing, and some coaches will say, now, you know, if the game comes right down to the wire and somebody shoots a half-court shot and it's a 1-point game and that team is down by 1 point, or let's say they shoot maybe not a half-court shot, but a 20-foot shot, and that ball goes around and out, the losing coach looks at 30 different things during that game that they did wrong. The winning coach will accept those 30 things they did wrong, and yeah, we shouldn't have done that, but he's not as adamant about them. Just because of one shot going in or out, maybe the luck of the shot bouncing this way or that way sometimes. And the old saying is, well, you shouldn't accept in winning what you wouldn't in defeat. You know, like that bad defensive play or that missed box out or that poor fundamental pass. You shouldn't accept that. But you tend to, to be honest. You tend to, if you happen to win, you tend to let that slip by, and we'll see if we can't do better, but not major. So yes, you go in and more than playing to your potential, winning kind of becomes more important than playing to your potential, as much as you wish it in reality that it didn't, as much as you say and try to convince yourself or somebody else or whatever, no, we just play the best you can, and that's all you can do. You wished it was that way, but pressure can change that a little.
Do you are there any losses, looking back, that kind of, you know, have stuck in your mind that were particularly rough for your team and you?
Yeah, in '95 we were in the finals of the semi-state, and up at Notre Dame, won the afternoon game against the toughest team I thought in the semi-state, Fort Wayne North. And then played Dean Foster, Elkhart Central that night, and just did not play well. They beat us by double figures, and we had a chance before they had class basketball. We had a chance to go to the state finals, and I just felt like that team. I don't know. It had been an awfully enormous upset to win the state that year. Ben Davis had 3 Division I players, big time, pro players, 1 pro player, and probably a pro at that time. And but I just felt like we'd have played Maryville, and they were really, really good. But I just felt like we could maybe do some things. I don't know, maybe tactically to equalize it and have a chance to beat them. So yeah, that was a tough one. Back in the mid '80s, LaVille beat us in finals of a sectional, and we hadn't won a sectional for a couple of years before that time, and so that one was a kind of a memorable loss as well. And I hate to say it, but there's been so many memorable wins, but sometimes those losses are stick out a little bit more than some of those wins.
So looking back, who were the main rivals that you just always knew it was going to be a tough game, or there was going to be a lot of, emotional, back and forth, or it's going to be?
Well, that would bring up some memorable wins and losses right there. I don't think you could probably talk to any of our players from the past. I don't know, probably any of our fans, administrators or whoever, who wouldn't say, we've got some area teams that are rivals with us and that sort of thing. But I think Warsaw, without any question, would be our biggest rival and our biggest game of the year. And as it worked out, we would play them right early February, which is right around my birthday. So sometimes I had a memorable birthday, one way or the other. But then they also would be consistently be in our regional. They would win their sectional quite often, and so if we were able to get past our sectional opponents, then possibly see them a matchup in the regional. So there were times when we faced them twice in 1 year. And no, there was nothing close to Warsaw. We had some other teams that you would really compete with, but Warsaw was different. It was it was like our kids might not wear orange ever, okay, orange or black. Nothing against our Culver people that we love, but orange and black meant Warsaw. So. And our kids would go to college, maybe IU, Purdue, something like that. As they come back and say, hey, I'm rooming with, all right, there's a guy in my dorm who's from Warsaw. He's not a bad guy. He's not a bad kid. like he's really human. I mean, there are actual nice human beings from Warsaw. Oh, and Warsaw fans, I think felt maybe the same way, but about Plymouth and about us. But and over the years, I've just gotten to love the Warsaw coaches and the players over the years, and a lot of their kids. But and they're just great people. But yeah, you want to be careful when you're scouting Warsaw, and you can be there in the middle of winter. You can have your stocking cap pulled down over your head, but you got this notebook, and you're walking in or walking out, one or the other, and this car drives by, and they call you by name and call you some other names by name. And you're thinking, oh, okay, I think I know where I am right now. This is definitely a rivalry.
Couldn't hide from them. Would you do anything extra, leading up to that game? Would you do anything different than you normally would?
Well, with Warsaw would run an awful lot of set plays. They would have maybe 30 to 40 set plays. And then they would maybe run 15 or 20 against our type of defense. So yeah, early in the week we would kind of divide up between players or coaches. We'd kind of mix it up sometimes, and so on that Monday before we play them it started out being on a Friday, we would go over all their set plays, and then kind of run up and down the floor, offense and defense, against this set and that set, and one coach would call them out, and then we'd run against that one, just familiarize ourselves with them. And then, but we do that with a lot of teams, so maybe since they did so much more, it felt like we were spending maybe more time on it since they had so many set plays and did not really run it so much of a kind of a motion type offense like a lot of teams had done during that time. And why wouldn't they? I mean, it was so successful for them. Jim Miller, Al Rhodes' coach, had done that, and so it was a good thing for them, and so we tried to prepare for them and that way, and figure out kind of our game plan early in the week, and then little by little during the week continue to go over them so our kids would be pretty familiar with them. And of course, during that week, their players, when they're, now maybe during a week where we're not playing a big time rival, or we're playing somebody from another county somewhere or something, our kids are kind of listening like this. Warsaw's kids are listening kind of like this. They're with you, but maybe on Warsaw week, it's big eyes, and the Warsaw kids, they're with it totally. So there's a little different approach from the players and the coaches, that week probably, whether you whether you want to admit it or not.
So when it came time to step away from head coaching, how did that come about? How did you feel? How did you know it was time to kind of step away?
Interestingly enough, I was ready several other times to step away. I was ready. In fact, I thought in the mid '80s, about '84, '85, I thought it's getting to be a year-round type thing, and everybody says that, the family type thing and all, but just it's draining, and I'm not sure I've got just the enthusiasm I had like 10 years ago and all. And then, some things kind of happen and all, and you just kind of get rejuvenated, and you just kind of stay in the battle a little bit longer. And so then I was thinking, after Michael graduated in '95, I thought that's probably going to be it. I'd kind of like to watch him play a little bit more in college and that sort of thing, and just change directions. I enjoy the teaching part of it, and maybe put a little more time into teaching. You like to think you get pretty well prepared for teaching, but if you really evaluate yourself in the fall of the year as compared to the winter of the year, you do a lot more preparation teaching-wise in the fall than you do in the winter. And so, I felt like that wasn't as good as it could be. So, I don't know. So I asked Lee Zumwalt if he wanted to be the head coach, and he said he didn't think so. He wanted me to keep going as coach, but because he kind of enjoyed coaching at that time. But so we just both kind of stayed with it for a few more years, and in fact, Lee's the one that kind of kept me going. My wife and Lee and some pretty supportive people kept me going through the '90s, and then you start getting you start thinking, okay, I'm still kind of ready here in the late '90s and all. And then you get a player or two that you just there's these coaches on the floor kind of guys that we've talked about. Just they're totally with you, and you just get that connection, little extra connection with them, and you think, okay, I'll stay another year for this guy. And well, this guy's a sophomore, and man, he's just totally with it. He's totally connected with you, and you just kind of get that bond. And okay, I'll stay 2 more years for this guy. And all of a sudden wait a minute here, we're in the mid 2005 or somewhere in there, and you just get some great kids, and you see these young kids, and they're just so with it. And then we had a year of probably 2003 where I think maybe only won 6 games or something like that. And you're thinking, oh, I think these guys, I want to see if we can't get them to get to that next level. And so, just fortunate and blessed. They get to the state finals in 2 years. So I'm thinking, wow. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe that's enough. But we didn't end up winning that year. So it kind of kept me going. We had some great young kids that just hard to leave right then. And so I go 2 more years to 2007. So then we end up winning that year, and so a lot of seniors thought, well, maybe this is the time. And but we did have some couple of younger kids that just broke my heart to leave them. And but decided that it was time at that time. And so for some of those younger kids like Jeremy Renz and Randy Davis and Nick Neidlinger and a lot of those juniors and all, Drew and Blaine Schaefer, those guys, Ryan, they're still around here at this time, Ryan Welsh, and it was hard, but just it's got to happen sometime, and so that's when it happened, and I just felt like it was a difficult choice to make, but it was time to make it.
So it sounds like your wife was pretty supportive of all your coaching.
Yeah, Judy was. Yeah, she was during the tough times, most especially. She was the whole key to keep me going through it. The encourager, the one who, like at the end of the year, she'd always be writing. I didn't know it half the time. She'd be writing notes to the players, encouraging them, like right before the sectional, and so she was the encourager. She encouraged them and me during the year, and sometimes I'm coming, and I'm just, it was tough for her. No 2 ways about it. I'm a terrible loser. I hate to lose, and I'm not. I don't handle it well. I try to just keep my mouth shut as much as I can, but I am very unsuccessful at it quite often. But it stays with me. I mean, if it's a Friday night, we don't play on Saturday night. Sunday's not, a good day. I had a student teacher once that. Susie Clevenger, she says, tell me, when is it okay to kind of start talking to you after you've lost a game on Friday? I said, about next Thursday. I said, you can talk to me about then. So Judy, she's just so supportive and just hung in there with me and let me have my mood for a while and just storm in a corner or whatever, but just always there, always, and that plus, raising the kids, as every coach will tell you. I mean, they do a lot of the raising of the kids during that period of time, and to have her influence on our kids was monumental in their lives.
It seems to be a pretty common thread between the interviews that I've done with coaches is, a strong relationship with a wife who gets involved with the team as well.
Yeah.
Al Shockney was telling me about how his wife would go down with them they would go down to Brown County, to train, and she would go down and she would cook all the meals for everybody, and just
yes.
amazing,
yes.
So when you can have that kind of support,
yes.
It's gotta be amazing to be able to do that.
So. Yeah, you could tell it. you could tell it was Judy, like during games, and maybe she'd come to a practice some or something like that. You could tell it because the players would, always acknowledge her and just showed her such great respect. Of course, they were respectful kids, I felt like, but you could tell like there was a little extra there that they just really admired her, appreciated her, much like I do.